Hello, this is Steph Houghton, the Irritated American. Um, and what is irritating me today is the situation in the Ukraine. Um, I guess they like us to say just Ukraine, but anyway, my linguistic habits are ingrained, and I will probably stick with the improper usage. But here's the thing: while the President Biden was trying to solve this situation, I didn't like to say anything that might undermine him. But now that his policy has manifestly failed, since Russian troops have entered into the territory of Ukraine, but here's his fundamental problem. Teddy Roosevelt told us that, what American presidents should do on the world stage is walk softly and carry a big stick. Mr. Biden, by contrast, over the Ukraine crisis, has spoken loudly for months now. I mean, just shouting from the rooftops that the Russians were coming. And at the same time, often with the very same words, he was announcing that he was not going to use the very big stick that the American people pay a very large amount of money for every year. So he might as well have been carrying no stick. So that was his what he did as president in this crisis is he talked loudly and carried no stick. I just don't know what to say. It's preposterous. Won't even go into the, whole, he was bragging during the election that, Putin would respect him. Anyway, so now that's, first of all, let's look at what he should have done. First of all, he should have given warning, not perhaps so loudly and frequently, but some warning. And he should have tried to rally our allies. That he did relatively well at. And he should have sent weapons to Ukraine, which also we've done. So that's all fine. But saying in advance that he wasn't defending Ukraine, threw away one of his strongest strategic advantages, which was the strategic ambiguity over what we were going to do. That was a serious error in judgment. And, when it looked like strategic ambiguity wasn't going to, if it came to pass that strategic ambiguity was not going to save us, then, he needed to draw a line. And, it's not like this is a difficult line to draw. He should have said, if you invade the Ukraine, we're declaring a no-fly zone from west of a line drawn 50 miles east of the Dnieper River. That would have kept the critical parts of Ukraine under U.S. air protection and showed Putin that he was going to have a real fight on his hands if he tried to push too far into Ukraine. And if he didn't, the Ukrainians were going to be able to rally on the far side of on the west side of the Dnieper River and, launch a guerrilla war against him. How sometimes we don't understand the proper use of guerrilla warfare. It just boggles my mind. But anyway, so that's what he should have done. And that probably would have solved the crisis right there. I think Putin would have been like, okay, this is just not worth it. But even if he had, it still would have avoided war. He probably just wouldn't have sent his airplanes, into the no-fly zone. And if he did, we would have had a brief clash of air power, which we would have probably won. Especially if, the other thing is, the U.S. government and NATO in general have been idiotic about, its forward deployment of its forces. The fact is we need a brigade in each of the Baltic countries, not a U.S. brigade. Now, we don't want to get that close to the Russians. But, there should be a Danish brigade in Estonia, a French brigade in Latvia, and, the British brigade in Lithuania. And there should be a full U.S. division, by the way, in Poland, in the western part of Poland, not the east, obviously, but you know, the line, lines need, and there should probably be a U.S. division in Romania too. That would basically mean a corps in the Ukraine. I mean, a corps in the Baltic countries. If you combine the active and reserve brigades of the Baltic countries with those 4 deployed brigades, that would mean a corps in the Baltic countries, 2 corps basically in Poland, or 1 very large corps of 5 divisions, a 3-division corps. Then I think is it 3 or 4? Pardon my knowledge of the NATO order of battle is not as strong as it should be. But the point is, there's no excuse for this. Yeah, I know our European allies can be a pain, but the ones on the front lines are not the ones who are a pain. Yeah? I mean, that's the Germans, and to a certain degree the French, who won't, the French actually spend enough money, but it's the Germans who just won't spend any money. Country that size with a 2-division army. Is it 2 divisions or 3? Anyway, it's preposterous. Anyway, my point. The Biden administration needs now to figure out what it's going to do. I still think the no-fly zone idea has merit. No-fly zone from a line 50 miles east of the Dnieper River, and probably a promise to actually attack ground forces that cross the Dnieper. Anyway, I can't avoid this. The thing that's obnoxious about this is that that Democratic politicians spent 4 years trying to pretend that the previous president was some kind of Russian agent. But he was clearly much firmer with Putin than Obama had been, or firmer than Biden has been. In fact, Biden, if anything, has been idiotically provocative. There's a way in which this may be who knows? Polkovnik Putin certainly, is no one to put any, trust in. Whatever President Bush thought about when he looked in his eyes, but, this is preposterous. This is now the second time that a Democratic administration has allowed Putin to get away with bullshit in the Ukraine. Yet I remind you that the honor of our country is on the line here. We guaranteed the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and the Obama administration violated that promise. And the Biden administration is allowing it to be further violated. Now, that does not mean that we have to necessarily get ourselves into a nuclear war. But, what we do have to do is make it at least as expensive as possible for Putin to violate his own guarantee of Ukraine's territorial integrity. Because every minute his troops are in Ukraine, he's breaking his word. Every minute his troops are in Ukraine, we're breaking ours too. But at least we're doing it passively, not actively. Anyway, that's what irritates me today. I will have something more to say on other topics in a minute or two, I think. Anyway, bye. God bless y'all and the Republic.